Hi, I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, another international airliner crashes, the third in a week. We'll tell you what's behind the latest disaster. Talk of a new stadium came up today as San Diego Charger fans turned out by the thousands to catch the team's first practice of the season.
Plus, more earthquakes are likely in San Diego County, where the newly discovered faults are and the level of risk they pose. I'm Peggy Pico. Also coming up, an update from both sides of the large and controversial Lilac Hills Ranch development proposal in North County.
Don't be surprised to see your favorite superhero trekking through the streets of San Diego. Comic-Con is in town. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. 3 airplane crashes in 1 week today. An Algerian plane vanished in a rainstorm over Mali in West Africa. It crashed with 116 people on board. Yesterday, a Taiwanese plane crashed during a storm, killing 48 people. Just a week ago, a Malaysia Airlines plane was shot down over eastern Ukraine. The U.S. is blaming that crash on separatists firing a surface-to-air missile. The FAA lifted its 2-day ban on U.S. flights to Israel. Flights were halted over concerns they might be hit by Hamas rockets as they flew into Tel Aviv. Last year, nearly 1,000 passengers flew between the U.S. and Israel on American carriers. San Diego's voluntary water restrictions are not enough. The County Water Authority voted unanimously tonight to recommend making water restrictions mandatory because of the state's ongoing drought. That means no washing down driveways and sidewalks, turning off fountains, and repairing water leaks. Also, limiting outdoor watering during the early morning or late evening. Now, the mandatory restrictions are something that each water district will take up individually. The drought is taking its toll on our region's largest water supplier. A new study finds the groundwater is shrinking from the Colorado River Basin, enough to threaten long-term water supplies. The basin actually feeds 7 states, including California and parts of Mexico. Researchers say the basin has lost nearly 53 million acre-feet of water. That's enough to supply more than 50 million homes for a year. 3/4 of the losses involve groundwater. An updated national seismic map tonight. It shows newly discovered earthquake faults in Southern California. Peggy Pico tells us where and how much risk the faults pose to San Diego.
In its updated National Seismic Hazard Map, the U.S. Geological Society reveals new offshore faults near San Diego, which increases and extends earthquake risk in our area by about 20%. Here with further details is geologist Pat Abbott. Pat, welcome back.
Good to be here.
No, I said new, but I really should say newly discovered offshore faults, because clearly they've been there. Describe for us where they are.
Well, basically, the first approximation, you look out offshore, and every time you see a bunch of islands, the Coronado Island, San Clemente Island, Catalina Island. Why are those islands there? They're squeezed up, lifted up along those active faults. So we've known they've been there all along. The problem is, how fast are they moving and what has their record been? And we have more information on that now.
Now, are these faults, they're parallel, as you were saying, kind of moving out. Are they connected? And if one was to rupture or move, would it impact the others?
Well, interestingly enough, that's part of what this new study has done here. Now, what the USGS has done with this thing, where they've tried to reduce things to the bits of information, then let the supercomputer go through thousands of iterations on it. And part of what that does is it shows is that commonly you don't just have one fault move. It's a really big earthquake. Some of the nearby faults move as well. So that's significant. Now, for us on land here, we've been able to dig trenches and measure offsets, do radiocarbon dating of twigs and things to try to get an idea of magnitude and when earthquakes occurred. Haven't been able to do that offshore. GPS data are now being fed into that, and that's what's giving us more of a quantification feel for what's happening offshore. So what are those faults? When you look at the map and you see, here's the San Andreas Fault, San Jacinto.
That's my next question. Right. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Yeah, I wanted to know how they compare to these faults that we already, here in San Diego specifically, Rose Canyon, Lake Elsinore. How do these offshore faults, do we know enough about them to compare them to what we had?
Yes,
seen
we
already?
do. We don't know as much, but better all the time. You might almost visualize from the San Andreas Fault in the desert to the offshore, all like taking a deck of cards and shearing it. So in other words, they're all more or less subparallel to each other. Basically, the edge of the Pacific Plate, westernmost California, is literally being sheared past the rest of North America. Now, for those offshore faults, they are not as big as the San Andreas, but they're as big as the Elsinore Fault, which gave us our Easter earthquake 4 years ago there in Baja California. They're as big as the Rose Canyon Fault. So when we look offshore at Coronado Banks, Santa Cruz Island, those faults, they could easily do earthquakes of magnitude 7.
And you're right ahead of me here. Do these faults on the offshore, do they actually increase the intensity of earthquake probability? Let's say instead of having a bunch of little 4.0s, we might have a 7 here in the San Diego area?
Yes, we've always thought as much, but what we're doing now with this great new work done by the U.S. Geological Survey, what they've done is they've tried to reduce things down to millimeters of slip per year. In other words, for all these faults, they took the faults of California and broke them like into about 2,700 rectangles and then put millimeters of slip data in each one to try to have the computer assess earthquake risk. And so for the offshore faults, now that's GPS data put in there, so we actually have slip rates put in those faults and now have a better feel of their size and their potency. And they are significant. They are things to be taken seriously.
What about the risk of tsunami? I've always heard we have a shelf off the coast here in San Diego, a pretty steep shelf. Does that protect us from a tsunami if one of these offshore faults were to rupture?
Well, good question. When we talk about those offshore islands, they actually are like high edges on ridges. You get whole ridges lifted up, ridge and troughs, and those undersea topography of those huge ridges and troughs do a great job of taking a lot of the energy out of the big tsunami that come from Alaska or Japan or Chile, and we have data on those. We've seen what they do to us, not that much. However, those faults offshore themselves, the stunning one here was in 1998 in Papua New Guinea, where a magnitude 7 earthquake offshore on a setting just like what we have. The earthquake didn't do a tsunami, but it set off a submarine sandslide, and that sandslide pushing towards the shore ran a tsunami up that killed over 2,000 people. That same thing could happen here. You could have that kind of a tsunami.
Possible, but probable?
Probable, high probability, but very rare frequency.
I see. Which I guess I'm trying to figure out if the San Andreas fault is still our biggest threat as far as causing the most damage here in San Diego.
Certainly the San Andreas fault's the one that can give us the biggest magnitude earthquake. For us, luckily, we're on the order of 80 miles away from it, so a lot of that high frequency energy will have lost a lot of its impact by the time it gets to San Diego. You kind of think maybe back to 4 years ago to our Easter earthquake where we had like that 45 seconds of rocking and rolling. Well, take that and say extend the length double and maybe the up and down double and get maybe more of a feel of what that San Andreas fault earthquake would do to us, particularly shaking tall structures like bridges and buildings.
Okay, let me end on this one. We don't have a whole lot of time. So the USGS updates their hazard map about every 6 years, I understand. Why is that important? How are these maps used?
Building codes is the most significant thing. As we gather more and more information about earthquake frequency and what magnitudes earthquakes are liable to occur, then those need to go into the building codes so that we construct things in ways to protect people.
All right, geologist Pat Abbott, thank you so much.
Good to be here.
It's the first full day of San Diego's largest convention, Comic-Con. If the crowds on the floor are too much to handle, try exploring the events outside the con. Some require badges, but others are open to everyone. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando started with a leap of faith.
I'm Beth Accomando, and I'm outside of Comic-Con where there's a lot going on, including a leap of faith. I just survived the leap of faith, and there's also an obstacle course here for the Assassin's Creed experience. There's also a lot of other stuff going on outside Comic-Con, and we're going to take you on a quick tour through what you can do.
Jump, jump, jump.
I'm Michael Frosty Zerno, Chief Parkour Officer for Ubisoft, and I've been strapped up with this sweet GoPro, and I'm going to take you through the Assassin's Creed experience so you can see what it's like to run the course through the eyes of a real parkour master.
But kind of the main attraction that we have here is something that's called the pizza shooter. It's sort of spirited around this toy that kind of had a cult-like following a long time ago. It was a toy, and we've taken that toy image and made it a full-size 12-foot by 16-foot pizza thrower. People can get up on it, first-person experience, fire pizzas at bad guys or Ninja Turtle enemies like Shredder and things like that, and it's been a lot of fun.
I just zip-lined across that thing, and it was scary. I totally almost did not go. In fact, there was a point where I was telling my friend, like, I can't go, unclip me, and she's like, no, you're gonna go, and she's pushing me from behind, and they're like, just go ahead and sit in it, and I'm like, I don't want to sit in it. It's scary, it's scary. My best friend, we've been going for 11 years, she only was able to get one day this year. So she's actually going to come down on the other days and be able to do all this fun stuff that you don't have to have a badge for, which is really cool.
Nice ride. There are lots of exhibitors inside the main convention hall at Comic-Con, and one company is putting an extra dimension into their display. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson shows us how.
3D Systems and its entertainment partners hold a prominent corner spot on the main floor of the convention center. Artist Shun Kim uses a computer stylus to sculpt and draw a three-dimensional figure. Once done, it can be printed into a plastic figurine. 3D Systems marketing rep Keith Ozar says the pop culture convention is the perfect place to introduce the idea to consumers.
3D printing, people think it's a new technology, and in fact it's been around for 30 years. 3D Systems invented 3D printing 30 years ago, and people have been using it for automotive, aerospace, medical applications for 30 years. Just in the past couple of years, has it entered the consumer space.
When it comes to action figures, the results can be photorealistic, impressive. These small statues look like the actors in the AMC show The Walking Dead. A lot of the buzz at Comic-Con has to do with exclusive figurines, but there's very little that's more exclusive than a figurine that has your face on it. 3D Systems rep Will Scythe helps convention goers become characters.
So this obviously is for The Walking Dead. That's one of the properties that we have for this experience. And so, you feel like being Rick and Daryl?
We'll go with Daryl.
Okay, let's try it out.
This kiosk contains the scanning and computing technology to create a figurine with your face.
1, 2, 3. Okay, we got a picture.
The digital result is free. It can be posted on Facebook or Twitter. An actual figurine with your face on it costs about $80. This is a cookie cutter application where 90% of the figurine is already done. Joe Bohr holds a scanner that's just a little bit more sophisticated.
Little hardware attachment for the iPad connects in. Then you've got the iSense app on the App Store that lets you do physical photography just about anywhere in the world.
He turns it on, walks slowly around the subject scanning the person, and then activates a computer software program that fills in the gaps. The end result is a 3D image that can be loaded into a computer and then printed by a 3D printer. Keith Ozar says putting the technology into consumers' hands has the potential to change more than just the entertainment world.
A kid could find a video camera in their dad's closet and they can become Steven Spielberg, right? For the way they communicate with video. What does it mean when you find a machine that can make, you can become an architect, you can be an industrial designer, engineer. And this is what we really need right now. We need people who that can rebuild infrastructure and make things.
The technology is still expensive. The smaller consumer-grade printer costs several $100s. The larger version, about $2,700. And it costs about $50 for a print cartridge. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
As you can see, there's plenty to do at Comic-Con. The convention runs through Sunday. Monday is the deadline for public comment on a proposal for a mixed-use development just north of Escondido. Peggy Pico gets an update from both sides of the controversial issue.
The proposed Lilac Hills Ranch development would add more than 1,700 new housing units and 90,000 square feet of commercial and retail space in a semi-rural area north of Escondido and east of I-15. The area is currently zoned for 110 homes. Steve Hutchison with the Valley Center Community Planning Group is opposed to the project, and Nancy Lane was asked by the project developer, Accretive, to speak in support of the Lilac Hills Ranch development. Welcome.
Thank you.
Steve, the Valley Center Community Planning Group opposes this development. What are the committee's main objections?
The principal objection is the location. The project is planned for a very agricultural, rural area that is part of the community development model of Valley Center to be less dense and available for agriculture.
Do you think that it violates land use rules as they stand now?
As they stand now, yes. The general plan is the sort of the constitution of land use in the county, and it was just passed 3 years ago. It calls for that area to be zoned in parcels anywhere from 2 to 40 acres, not the 2.9 dwelling units per acre that the project is going to average.
And Nancy, I know you used to be against this development, and you actually changed your mind. Why build a 600-acre location, this development, 600 acres, in an area zoned for 110 homes?
Well, actually, one of the things that I think is great about the development is the location. It's a mile and a half, I think, on the beginning edge from the freeway. So that has access to the major roads. It's a simple and quick and easy and doesn't add any more trips to the longer range of the internal roads of the county. And I think it makes sense for a lot of reasons because it goes along with the plans of the community, or excuse me, of the county to put the main developments along the major thoroughfares and roadways. And it is one of the things that I think is necessary in when you're looking at development how's the access? How are you going to get in and out?
Do you think that the county should change its growth plans, Nancy, to the growth plan, I should say, to accommodate this development? Because I don't think it accommodates it right at the moment.
Well, again, when this developer first started and first acquired that property, it was a different development plan, and the county plan had not yet been approved. Plans are made, as I'm sure everyone knows, to be changed and to be tweaked and to make them work better for the communities that they're in. And so, yeah, I believe that it does make sense if it goes along with the greater plan of having development along corridors to do that. Yeah.
And Steve, what do you think? Do you think the growth plan should be changed to accommodate this?
Oh, absolutely not. The general plan was put in place acknowledging all the existing communities like Fallbrook and Bonsall and Valley Center and Ramona and Dulzura as the cores of those communities. And the community development model, which is part of that general plan, dictates that you put all the density, the highest density, around those cores where there's schools and jobs and businesses that can support that density. And then land uses gradually thin out as you get to the edges, which is where this project is planned for, the edges of Bonsall and Valley Center. In fact, it straddles the border there. Where it was intended, and still is intended, that it be available for larger parcels and agriculture.
I know the developer describes this project as sustainable growth, promising to use green technology, solar, recycled water. Does that help a little bit in that, it's a development, but they're really trying to make this a lower impact?
Well, sustainability is an absolutely great goal. But a sustainable community or a green community that's out in the wrong place is still sprawl. We're going to have to extend infrastructure to this project. There's a discussion right now whether there's going to be fire service available because it's way out of the way of the existing structure. Sewer's going to have to be extended at a great cost, something on the order of $50 million. Pipelines laid, new water routes connected. So there's very little there that's already in support of a project that size. If it were built, say, next to Escondido or Vista or Oceanside, where there's already that infrastructure in place, it wouldn't be as much of a problem.
Well, I know part of the proposal does support a new fire station to go along with it. And Nancy, in response to that, how do you think this development would benefit the community as a whole, either bringing a new fire station, the benefits to the community?
Well, it does bring in a new fire station. There is one now that's a Cal fire station, and they're in negotiation as to whether or not they're going to put a second one depending on what the fire district determines, and that's really their call. And it will recycle water. There actually is less water used by housing than it is by agriculture, so it will actually lower the water, and particularly if you're recycling that water. It will actually produce more water for the community. And as far as a sewer, I don't know any homeowner anywhere who would be opposed to having a sewer available to his property as opposed to septic. Most people are very happy to have that there, and they're certainly working with the people who are within that line and the roads and so on to have that brought in. And that's, again, a negotiation point. You can talk to people about how that can be changed.
All right.
And then I just have one other tiny little point, and that is that the development that you call sprawl, and saying that, Fallbrook and Bonsall and those areas have their core communities. Fallbrook is putting right now several thousand homes up in sort of that same corridor right along the freeway, along with an expansion of the Palomar College. And Bonsall is is working with the development now, and will see a very wonderful increase actually in their school bonds, their school development, and their school students because of the development. If you look at
let me respond to that. So there's other areas that are growing, and I guess my question would be, would you support any development in this area?
I support the general plan, and the general plan does focus on the existing communities. Fallbrook chose to move their development, because they don't like dense development, out on the edge, out along I-15. Valley Center, Ramona, many other communities, Bonsall, don't see it that way. They'd rather have the densest part of their community at the core, where there's infrastructure to support it.
All right, we're going to have to wrap it there. There's a lot more on our website, kpbs.org. I want to say Stephen Hutchinson and Nancy Lane, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Well, it still may be early summer, but you can already watch football in San Diego. Chargers training camp started today, and fans showed up by the thousands. KPBS reporter Matt Bowler asked some of the fans their prospects on and off the field this season.
The Chargers are back. At Chargers training camp, fans get first look at all the rookies, and the veterans get to show us they've still got it. There's a crowd favorite. Fans are cautiously optimistic about the season.
I'd like to see 10-6, maybe 11-5, but we've got a tough November-December schedule, so if we can get through December with a winning schedule like we have, I think we'll be in good shape.
It's a year to build and improve.
Oh, I think they can do great, man. We had a great year last year, and we're just going to continue to build on that and get better.
One thing that's not being built is a new Chargers stadium. These fans worry that if a new venue isn't built, their team could leave town.
We don't want to see the Chargers go.
Fans talk about how to get a new stadium built the same way they talk about how to better run a play. A bit of armchair quarterbacking about what San Diego should do to help get the new venue.
We'd have to kind of mirror what some of the other cities did. San Francisco just got a new stadium. I'd look and see what they kind of gave up in order to get a new stadium.
They also say they'd part with some more of their cash to keep their team in San Diego.
If it takes raising the ticket price a little bit more, they raise them every year. I mean, if we have to pay a little bit more extra to keep the San Diego Chargers here, then I think we would as fans.
For those wanting the Chargers to stay and play in a new San Diego stadium, success on the field this season would seem to enhance their chances. Matt Bowler, KPBS News.
Well, don't worry if you missed today's public practice. 9 more are scheduled. We have dates and times on our website, kpbs.org.
I'm Gwen Eiffel on the next News Hour. New research sheds light on the genetics behind schizophrenia. That's Thursday on the PBS News Hour.
Plenty of sunshine and warmer temperatures around the county today. We'll see a mix of sun and clouds along the coast tomorrow, with temperatures near 80 right through the weekend. Inland Valley temperatures warm on the warm side as well, 90 tomorrow, and a mix of sun and clouds Saturday and Sunday. You can see temperatures dipping back into the upper 80s. Lots of sun in the mountain areas with upper 80s. And if you're heading out to the desert, bring lots of water. They're expecting, once again, triple-digit heat right through the weekend. Let's get a recap of our top stories tonight. An Algerian airliner crashed today, making it the 3rd airplane crash in the past week. Wreckage has been found in Mali in West Africa. A Taiwanese plane crashed yesterday during a storm. And a week ago today, a Malaysia Airlines plane was shot down over eastern Ukraine. The FAA lifted its ban on U.S. flights to Israel today. The two-day ban was put into place because of concerns planes might be hit by Hamas rockets while heading to Tel Aviv. Last year, nearly 1,000 passengers flew between the U.S. and Israel on American carriers. And the streets of San Diego have been taken over by superheroes. Comic-Con got underway today. If you can't get into the convention center, there are plenty of other events going on downtown. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night. We leave you with a little taste of Comic-Con. We'll see you tomorrow.